So you've probably heard the news. Australia has changed the rules to allow America to import their meat unrestricted to Australia. I want to know why. I'm a carnivore and I care about meat and I care about how it's raised and I care about where it comes from. In Australia, we have a fantastic beef industry. We already export 80% of our meat. 80% of all meat in Australia is exported overseas, all around the world. We are the second largest exporter of beef in the world, second only to Brazil. So why in God's name do we want to import meat from America and have Donald Trump saying he's going to bring all sorts of American meat to Australia? I want to say we don't need it. First of all, in America, they have recently repealed their country of origin rules. That means there was a time when if you imported meat to America, it had to be labelled as a product of wherever it came from. But they've repealed that. So now in America, they can import meat and package it in America and call it a product of America. So right off the boat, we don't even know where this meat will be coming from if we're going to import meat from America. But it's far worse than that, because beef here in Australia is very different to beef in the USA. I just want to spend a few moments and give you some of the differences. In both countries, the cattle start off in a paddock like behind me, and if I was to turn the camera, I'll let you see there are some beef cattle out there on the property where I live. In both countries, the beef cattle start off in pasture. But that's where the difference ends, because in the USA, those cattle are only on the pasture for somewhere between 6 and 12 months, and then they are moved to one of those CAFOs, a feedlot. Compare this to Australia, where the vast majority of the cattle spend their entire lives in a pasture like you see behind me. So why would you do that? Why would you send cattle to a feedlot? They do it to make them sedentary. That's the first reason. They take them from the wide open paddock, like you see here, and they put them into a cage. Now these cages, about 24 square feet is the minimum space you're allowed to have for these cattle in a feedlot. Just to give you some comparison there, that means you would fit 6 cows in the average parking space in a shopping centre. So they cannot move. They don't want them to move because they want them to get fat. And then they go on to a diet of grain, because they know that grain makes you fat. Hello? Funny how the farmers know that, but a lot of people today who are still pushing the grains for humans don't seem to understand. Grains make you fat. But look, you know, you imagine some good healthy grain, maybe it's some wheat, maybe it's some barley or whatever. Think again. Because in America, they don't feed healthy grains to the cattle. They feed them a product called DDGS. It stands for dried distillers grain with solubles. What it is, basically, is it is the waste product from the production of ethanol that we put in our cars for fuel, or some people do. You see, ethanol is made from a corn crop, and after they extract what they need for the ethanol, they have this waste product. So instead of waste it completely, they sell it to the farmers to feed their cattle. This is what they do in the United States. Not only that, but they set up a system where the farmers can buy this stuff really cheap, because they want to get rid of this waste product, obviously. And farmers, I just looked up yesterday, farmers in the United States are paying an average of $150 per tonne for this food. That is not edible, that is not fit for consumption, but they feed it to the cows. Why? Because it makes them fat very quickly. And that's what they want to do. You see, they want to add 600 pounds to the weight of a cow while it's in these feedlots. So their strategy is to put them in these confined spaces, to feed them this product that is a waste product from ethanol to make them fat. And then they do things like give them hormones, growth hormones, to make them grow faster. They up their feeding schedule, so they're eating twice as much as what they would normally be eating if they were out in the paddock eating grass. They want these cattle fat, and they want them fat as fast as they can to make a profit as fast as they can. They add limestones and synthetic minerals to the meat. And then they add antibiotics. Why? Well, they say it's to protect them from disease. The real reason is that the antibiotics speed up the fattening process. Then they add a product called beta agonist, if I pronounce that correctly. Beta agonist is a product that enhances muscle growth. It acts like a steroid. Are you getting the picture? You see, to be fair, Australians sometimes will finish their beef here with grain. But it's not nearly as common as in America. Here, about 25 to 30% are finished with grain. But there's much tighter restrictions on what the farmers can do, and everything must be labelled properly. For instance, here, if you see a label in a supermarket or a butcher's that says grass-fed, you can be pretty safe in assuming that piece of meat was grass-fed and grass-finished, that it never went to a feedlot. But in America, not so. All that means is that at some stage in its life, it ate grass. And so in America, you have to have a label that says, 100% grass-fed. I did a bit of research to find out what percentage of beef in America is actually genuinely grass-fed and grass-finished. And the result came out at 3%. That was the most generous figure I could find. Several sources quoted a figure of just 1%. So there's, somewhere around a 97 to 99% chance that if you buy meat in America, it's not going to be grass-fed and grass-finished. It's going to be raised in one of those CAFOs in the description that I've given in this video. You see the problem here? Why would we as Australians import this stuff? I mean, it doesn't make sense. And now we're saying we want to import meat from America with very different labelling laws and very different way in which that meat is raised, the way the animals are treated. Look, it's just not on. I don't get it. I don't know if somebody can help me understand this, because we don't want that meat and we won't buy it. I don't want to buy meat that comes from the other side of the world. One of the principles of healthy eating is to eat meat that is sourced as close to home as it can possibly be. That's the sort of meat that we want to eat. We don't want food that travels the world. Eat local produce, eat local foods. I think that's a given for anybody who takes their food seriously. I don't know what we can do about this here in Australia. Look, you've just got to vote with your hip pocket, I think, and just not buy any meat that's produced anywhere else than Australia. And look, what's this going to do for our farmers? They're already struggling. They're already up against it. We have farmers walking off the land in total despair, farmers committing suicide because they can't make the farm work. And we're going to make it even harder for them. And for what? To appease the Americans. Look, I've got many great American friends and many who watch this channel, but as an Aussie, I'm really upset about this. I'm really concerned about it. I would encourage you, if you're an Australian, to write to the authorities, write to the government, do all you can to get this message out here. We don't want that meat, and we don't understand the reason why we would import that meat. So look, I just wanted to get this off my chest and talk to you about what the difference is. Look, we need to know that the meat is very different in Australia to what it is in America. And I'm not saying that American meat is all bad. It's not. They do produce some great meat. But why would we import it when we're already exporting 80%? It doesn't make sense. Look, anyway, I wanted to encourage you to like and subscribe to this channel, and I would invite you to become a member of the channel. Members of this channel get their videos All videos are released to members earlier than the rest of the public, and also every couple of weeks I do a members only video that's more behind the scenes and background. But look, thanks for watching. I recently made a video about the whole of the big food industry, and if you missed that, I will leave a link to it up above. But look, please join our Facebook group, The Carnivore Pensioner. I will see you on the next video. Until then, keep eating meat, keep telling your story, and God bless. Bye for now.